The Nemo Equipment Aurora Highrise 6-person camping tent. This is a tent that I've been using out on my family camping trips for the past year, and I'm excited to talk about why I think this is one of the best camping tents that money can buy. It is one of the most comfortable, enjoyable camping tents that I've ever used. It just has all of the design features that make it a livable space for a family of 5 plus a dog. So dimension-wise, you've got a floor space of 100 inches by 120 inches and a 77-inch peak height. There is so much space in this tent for a family to be able to spread out and just be very comfortable. With that peak height, it makes it possible for me to stand up inside the tent. I can get changed, I can move around, and you've got some really nice vertical walls here in the tent as well. Now for me, this is the standout feature for this tent that makes it very enjoyable when you're out on a camping trip. You've got essentially vertical walls on the 2 long ends of the tent. You've got some cross poles that come out and they push this wall out and make it just create a ton of space in here. Oftentimes with these large tents, you've got a very big dome that takes place, which this does have that similarity. But what that does is it brings the wall in a bit and it makes it so you can't really stand up as much, and it reduces the amount of space inside of the tent. With the high-rise, you've got these walls that come up, make it nice and vertical and create much more living space. But you've also got these 2 large windows on either side that create a lot of cross ventilation on those summer nights when you're out as a family. These can roll up and you've got a little toggle right here to be able to pull that down. But in the event of a rainstorm, you're able to use this little loop and toggle and close that up, and you've got a piece of shock cord in here as well, like that. That makes it so that you're not going to get rain penetrating through, because this wall right here is actually exposed to the outside of the tent. It's the outside wall of the tent. This is where you can see how vertical and tall this wall is. Your rainfly comes over and creates a nice awning over top of that window. So you could drop down one side of the window to allow a little bit of ventilation when you've got some rain coming down on here, but it's going to create a nice flow off of the rainfly here and not have to worry about everything inside of the tent getting wet. In fact, I've had this tent out in some pretty gnarly rainstorms, and this has handled the rain very, very well. Now, all of the really cool movement and aerial style shots that you've seen as B-roll for the tent review today have actually come from this little guy here, the HOVERAir X1 Air, who is actually the sponsor of this video today. This is a under 250 gram weight self-flying camera that does not require a controller for you to be able to get really cool aerial shots that you like to see from a small drone like this. This thing flies by itself, has about 11 minutes of flight time or 20 flight paths, which this has 5 pre-programmed flight paths into it, like hovering, going straight up in the air, following behind you, doing what's called a dolly track, so it's going to follow in more movement. It's also got an orbit mode, and you can also manually fly this off of the app from Hover in very basic flying. So what you can do here is turn this thing on, and this thing is going to go bird eye right now, but it just takes off from the palm of your hand. It'll track onto your face, and then it's gonna go and do its flight path. So what it's got is some cameras and sensors on the bottom of the drone that it doesn't require GPS, and it's gonna use that to orient itself and know where it's at. And then once it's done, it'll come back down, and then you're able to just stick your palm out and have the drone land right back on your hand. Just like that. So the X1 Air is awesome because it's super tiny. It's got all of the things that you would want out of a super small drone like this without having all of the cumbersome things that go with running a drone to be able to get those cool aerial and movement shots when you're out adventuring. So Check this out, link down in the description, and I want to thank Hover for sponsoring this video today. Now for the fabrics that are used for the tent, for the outer fly here, you've got a 68 denier polyester PU coated fabric that has a 1200 millimeter hydrostatic head. And then the floor in here is fantastic because you've got 120 denier for the bottom of the tent here, makes it really strong, and it has a 1500 millimeter hydrostatic head. And the nice thing too is all of the seams are taped on the tent here, so you don't have to be concerned about water penetrating. And again, I've had this out in some pretty intense rain where this thing got soaking wet and didn't have any issues of any water leaking at any time. So here on the Highrise 6-person, you've got 2 doors and 2 vestibules. On the back of the tent here, you've got a little bit smaller vestibule that has just a single zipper entry. So I'm able to open this up and then get access to the smaller door that is back here, but at least it gives you the option of going through one side or the other and using this as additional gear storage as necessary. Here at the top of the zipper, you've got an additional pull that you can zip down and create some extra ventilation inside of the tent. But with such a large tent like this, condensation is hardly ever an issue to be concerned about. But that gives you access into that big vestibule, and then you can close that down and have all of that rain protection and gear storage at the back of the tent here. But then here at the front of the tent, you've got this massive opening with a huge door that makes it possible for you to obviously close that all the way up. But I can open this up from this side and get entrance into the tent that way, or I can also get entry into the tent on this side with the ability to roll back these doors and use the toggle and loop that's right here to be able to make that stay open without having to open the door all of the way. Now you can see that I've got the vestibule right here rolled back all the way. Now this acts as an awning essentially. If I had some extra guy lines, some cordage, and then some tarp poles, I would be able to set this up and use it as an awning per se over the tent to create a place that adds some additional shade, some weather protection, but it also is able to roll back like I've had it so that it makes getting in and out of the tent really easy on those days where it's super sunny and a beautiful day and you're not dealing with weather. But when you need to close things up for the night, I'll just zip that down like that. Then I'm all set to be protected from the weather, gear storage, all of that with a really nice feature-rich front door here. So now if I want to open things up even more, what I have the option to do is undo the stake, and then I can roll back this vestibule even more because I've got another toggle with the Nemo gatekeeper clip here that just opens up that space even more, allows a bit more ventilation inside of the tent. Just awesome. So many features available on the tent to make it as modular and as comfortable as you can possibly be. So what are my big takeaways from using the Aurora Highrise out on my family camping trips for the last year? For me, it just is the overall experience of being in here as a family and it being comfortable. There is so much space to move around, to stand up, to not feel like you are on top of each other when you're inside of the tent here. Now we've got a family of 5, and all 5 of us plus my dog is a little crammed, honestly, even for a 6-person tent. But that's like putting duffel bags with our clothing in here, having all the sleeping bags and the dog bed and the pads and such. It does get kind of busy, but it's not so crammed that you're like on top of each other and not able to enjoy yourselves. And it's the little touches of those vertical walls and all of the gear storage that is available here inside of the tent. At each corner at about mid-level, you've got a mesh pocket that gives you the ability to store things. And another little detail that you might not think really matters, but when you compare it to other options out there, look how cool this floor is. This is a fun design that's kind of like your home rug that is in your living room, and it brings that like homey feel out into the backcountry with you when you're out camping as a family. Aside from that, this is just performed so well in the backcountry. We've had it out on all sorts of different trips, in campgrounds, in crazy remote places, in the desert, in the mountains, crazy rainstorms, in the wind. Like, this has done so well that I would say it is the best camping tent I've ever used. Now, the last thing I'll say to wrap this up is to just speak to the quality of Nemo products, because I've been using this for a year. My kids are not necessarily gentle on things, and what has stood out to me is that the floor is in really good condition. I mentioned that we use the footprint, and that has helped protect the floor from dog nails, from kids running around being crazy inside of the tent, but also the zippers. Being in the desert and having sand and wind just blow that into the zipper track, and the zippers are continually functional and there's no problems. We've had some intense wind that has ripped through this. This thing handles the wind really well. You can even see some gusty stuff through this video today talking about the tent. We've like really put this through the paces and used it hard for the last year. You can also get this in a 4-person size that has just a smaller floor size, as well as a slightly shorter peak height. But if you've got a larger family and you want the additional space, at the price point that this comes at, this is worth the investment if you're gonna spend a good amount of time camping out as a family. So that is the Aurora Highrise 6-person camping tent. I freaking love this thing. So I've got a link down in the description for you to check it out for yourself. Thank you for watching today, guys. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Hope you have an awesome day. Catch you later.